All right, there's some new tech buzz heading towards Australia, a new phone generating quite a bit of interest. Today, we're doing a deep dive into the Vivo Y07.
Yeah, so our plan is to take the info we've gathered, especially from sources like MyFusion Mobile, and really break down everything you need to know. We're talking specs, features, and crucially, how it actually stacks up against the competition. Basically a shortcut so you're properly informed.
Exactly, because looking at a new phone, it's more than just reading off a list of specs, isn't it? It's about understanding the choices behind those specs, what they actually mean for you using it day to day, and where it sits in the market. We want to give you that full picture.
Okay, let's start with the basics then. When's it actually arriving?
Well, the status is that coming. It looks like both the announcement and the release are set for June 2025. So, yeah, coming soon. And for listeners here in Australia, the price is expected to be around AUD $300, though the source did mention there might be a few variants, so that price could shift a bit, more or less. Something to keep in mind.
Yeah, and that $300 mark, it puts it right into that really crowded, competitive mid-range space. Availability-wise, sounds like you'll be able to get it online or, from the official shops. And they mentioned cash or EMI options too, which gives people flexibility, makes it accessible.
Right. Okay, let's lift the hood then. Core specs. What's running this thing? It's coming with Android 14, and the chipset is the MediaTek Helio G85.
Ah, the Helio G85. Yeah, we've seen that one around. It's a solid chip for this kind of mid-range phone. It's not, a top-tier gaming beast, but for everyday tasks, social media, even some light gaming like Mobile Legends, maybe COD Mobile on lower settings, it's perfectly capable, reliable, and Android 14 is the base. That's good. You get the latest software foundation, better privacy, usually a smoother feel.
Okay, and what are we looking at? The display. It's a 6.56-inch HD plus IPS LCD. Resolution is 720 by 1600 pixels. But here's the interesting part. Especially for this price, it's got a 90 hertz refresh rate.
Oh yeah, that 90 hertz. That's actually pretty significant at this price point. It's one of those things that makes a budget phone feel more premium than it is. You get smoother scrolling, animations look more fluid. It just makes the whole phone feel, well, faster. Even if it isn't technically processing faster, it feels that way.
Definitely a nice touch. Now, battery life. Always crucial. This one's packing a 5,000 mAh battery, and it supports fast charging.
Right, 5,000 mAh is pretty hefty, especially paired with that Helio G85 and an HD Plus screen. You're looking at really good endurance there. Should easily get you through a full day, maybe even two for lighter users. That's a huge selling point for people who just need their phone to last. And fast charging is, well, it's almost expected now, isn't it? Good for quick top-ups.
Okay, let's quickly cover the build. Dimensions are pretty standard, 161.4 by 75.3 by 9.2 millimeter. Weighs 200 grams. It's got a glass front, but then a plastic frame and plastic back. Supports dual nano SIMs, which is handy. And there's a fingerprint sensor built in. Oh, and it comes in black.
Yeah, those build choices make sense for the price. Plastic keeps it durable, lighter than all glass, helps manage cost. Size is typical for a phone with this screen size. Dual SIM is great, always useful. And the fingerprint sensor, yeah, standard security feature, practical stuff.
All right, cameras, how's it looking there? The main setup is dual cameras, 13 megapixels plus a tiny 0.08 megapixel one. Comes with an LED flash. Video recording is 1080p at 30 frames per second. And the selfie camera is a single 5 megapixel shooter, also with HDR, and 1080p 30fps video.
Okay, so that 13 megapixel main camera, that's, fairly standard for this segment. Should be fine for everyday snaps, social media posts, the 0.08 MP1.
Yeah, that's almost certainly just a depth sensor maybe for helping with portrait mode blur. It's not really contributing much to image quality itself, more of a spec sheet thing. 1080p video front and back is perfectly adequate for casual use, video calls, that sort of thing.
Gotcha. Now, memory and storage. It's got 4 gigabytes of RAM.
Yeah.
And you can get it with either 64 gigabytes or 128 gigabytes of internal storage. But, and this is important, the source says no memory card slot. 4 gigs of RAM. That's okay for most multitasking. Android runs reasonably well on it. Maybe a bit tight if you're a really heavy user or gamer. But yeah, that lack of a memory card slot, it's a big one. That's a definite trade-off. It means you really need to decide upfront how much storage you need. 64 or 128, because you can't add more later. That's a cost-saving move for sure, but impacts the user.
Definitely something to consider. Okay, lastly, connectivity. It supports 4G LTE, GPRS, Edge, but interestingly, no 2G, 3G, or 5G listed. Wi-Fi is surprisingly advanced, though. 802.11 ABNEX 6.7, tri-band Wi-Fi Direct.
Wow, Wi-Fi 6E and 7 compatibility. That's actually quite forward-thinking for a budget phone. It means potentially much faster Wi-Fi speeds if you have the right router. LTE-A is basically fast 4G, which is fine for most people right now. The lack of 5G keeps the cost down. Makes sense for this bracket.
Okay. Then Bluetooth 5.0. Comprehensive GPS with dual band GPS, GLONASS, BDS, Galileo. It does have NFC, which is great for payments.
Yep, NFC is a big plus. Contactless payments are so common now.
And USB Type-C 2.0, but no FM radio or infrared port.
Right. So overall, pretty solid connectivity. The advanced Wi-Fi and the NFC are definitely highlights there. Losing FM radio, well, fewer people use that now anyway.
Okay, so we've got a good handle on the Y07 itself, but here's where it gets really interesting. How does it actually stack up against phones already out there in Australia? Let's put it head-to-head with, say, the Oppo A54, that's around $279, and the Xiaomi Redmi Note 10S, which is a bit more at $349.
Good comparison points.
Yeah.
Yeah, this really highlights the choices you make at slightly different price levels in that mid-range.
Yeah.
So let's start with the engine, the processor. Vivo Y07 has the Helio G85. The Oppo A54 uses a Qualcomm Snapdragon 480. And the Xiaomi Redmi Note 10S, that one has the Helio G95. Performance-wise, that Helio G95 in the Xiaomi is generally a bit punchier, especially if you like gaming, compared to the G85 in the Vivo. The Snapdragon 480 in the Oppo is more focused on efficiency, maybe slightly less raw power. So the Vivo sits kind of comfortably in the middle there, a good all-rounder.
Right. And what about RAM and storage across those three?
Well, the Vivo Y07, as we said, 4GB RAM, 64GB storage base. That actually matches the Oppo A54's base model. But the Xiaomi, for that extra bit of cash, gives you a boost. 6GB of RAM and 128GB of storage. So if you're someone who juggles lots of apps or takes heaps of photos and videos, that extra RAM and storage on the Xiaomi could be tempting. Less managing apps, less relying on the cloud.
Makes sense. Display-wise, we highlighted the Vivo's 90Hz screen. How do the Oppo and Xiaomi compare there?
Okay, so the Oppo A54 has a similar size screen, 6.51-inch HD+, but it's only 60 Hz. So the Vivo definitely wins on smoothness there. The Xiaomi Redmi Note 10S, however, has a slightly smaller 6.43-inch screen, but it's AMOLED, also at 60 Hz. So you have a trade-off. Vivo gives you the smoother 90 Hz on an LCD. Xiaomi gives you the richer colors and deeper blacks of AMOLED, but at 60 Hz. Depends what you value more, really. Smoothness or punchier colors.
Interesting choice. Okay, cameras. Vivo's got that 13 plus 0.08 MP dual setup. What about the others?
The Oppo A54 goes for a quad camera setup. 13 MP main, then 3 2MP sensors, likely for macro and depth, maybe a bit more versatility on paper. The Xiaomi Redmi Note 10S also has a quad setup, but it's led by a much higher-res 64MP main sensor, plus an 8MP ultra-wide and 2 2MP sensors. So generally, the Xiaomi looks stronger on paper for photography, especially with that 64MP sensor potentially capturing more detail. The Vivo's camera setup seems simpler, more focused on just getting reliable shots.
But one area where they seem to completely agree is the battery. All three, Vivo Y07, Oppo A54, Xiaomi Redmi Note 10S pack a 5,000 mAh battery.
Yeah, that's quite telling, isn't it? It shows that long battery life is just non-negotiable in this part of the market. Manufacturers know that's a top priority for users. So whichever of these you pick, you're likely getting excellent endurance. That's a definite positive across the board. So putting it all together, you can see the different angles. If that super smooth 90 Hz screen is your main thing, the Vivo Y07 looks really attractive. If you want the best possible camera specs in this range or need that extra RAM, maybe the Xiaomi justifies its slightly higher price. And the Oppo offers a solid, reliable entry point with great battery life at the lowest price of the three. It really depends on your personal priorities.
And My Fusion Mobile, the source we looked at, actually gave the Vivo Y07 an overall rating of 9 out of 10, which sounds quite high. They gave it 9s across the board: design, display, camera, features, connectivity, usability, performance, and battery. What do you make of that high score?
Yeah, a consistent 9 out of 10 is, it's very positive. It suggests they found it to be an exceptionally well-balanced package for the price. Maybe not the absolute best in any single category, like the camera perhaps, but strong enough in every area with no major flaws. It points towards a really solid, reliable user experience overall, making it feel like great value. That's probably why they rated it so highly, the total package.
Okay, so let's wrap up this deep dive on the Vivo Y07. What are the key takeaways? It's coming soon to Australia, targeting that AUD $300 price point. Big highlights are the huge 5,000 mAh battery and that smooth 90 Hz display, powered by the capable Helio G85 chip. Looks like a really solid mid-range contender overall. So what does this mean for you, the listener, trying to choose a phone in this busy market? Hopefully this gives you a clearer picture of this new option.
And maybe a final thought to leave you with. Seeing features like 90 Hz displays, huge batteries, even things like advanced Wi-Fi trickling down into these more affordable phones like the Vivo Y07, does that change what we think of as premium? Are our expectations shifting for what a phone should offer, even on a budget? And how might that continue to shape the phones we see coming out not just in Australia, but globally? Something to ponder.